You know that quiet pride you feel when someone calls you low maintenance? When they say, "You're so easy to be around," or "You never ask for anything"? There's this moment where you smile, maybe shrug it off, and inside there's this small satisfaction, like you've passed some invisible test, like you've proven you're not a burden. But here's what most people don't realize. That same quality you've been praised for your entire life might be costing you more than you've ever acknowledged. Because somewhere along the way, you stopped asking yourself what you actually need. You got so good at being easy, at taking up less space, at requiring less attention, that you genuinely lost track of your own desires. And now, when someone asks you what you want for dinner, for your birthday, in a relationship, in your life, you draw a complete blank. Not because you're easygoing, but because you spent years training yourself to believe that wanting less makes you worth more. I'm someone who spent the better part of a decade studying the psychology of self-worth, nervous system patterns, and the invisible ways we manage other people's comfort at our own expense. And what I've come to understand is this: being low maintenance isn't actually a personality trait, it's a survival strategy. And like most survival strategies, it works beautifully until it doesn't. Let me paint you a picture of what this actually looks like in real life. You're in a relationship, and your partner asks what you want to do this weekend. You immediately say, "I don't care, whatever you want." They press you. "No, really, what do you want?" And you feel this strange blankness. Not because you're being polite, but because you genuinely cannot access your own preference in that moment. Or you're at dinner with friends, and someone suggests a restaurant you don't really like, but you don't say anything because it feels easier to just go along with it. And later, when the food comes and you're not enjoying it, you notice this quiet resentment building. Not at them, at yourself, for not speaking up, but also at the whole situation, because speaking up feels impossibly hard. Or maybe it shows up at work. Someone asks you to take on an extra project, and even though you're already stretched thin, you say yes. Because saying no feels selfish. Because you've built your entire professional identity on being the person who can handle it, who doesn't complain, who makes things easier for everyone else. And here's the thing, people love this about you. They genuinely do. You're dependable, flexible, uncomplicated. You don't create drama or make demands. You're the friend people can relax around because they never have to worry about managing your emotions or meeting your needs. But what they don't see, what you might not even see, is the amount of internal labor this requires. Because being low maintenance isn't passive. It's not like you're just naturally unbothered by things. It's an active process of suppression. A constant, invisible effort to monitor your own needs, evaluate whether they're reasonable, and then quietly dismiss them before anyone else has to deal with them. Your nervous system is doing this for a reason, by the way. This didn't develop randomly. Most people who identify as low maintenance learned early that having needs was inconvenient. Maybe your parents were overwhelmed, stressed, emotionally unavailable, or dealing with their own issues. And you, as a kid, picked up on that. You noticed that when you were upset, it created tension. When you asked for too much, it was a problem. When you cried or complained or needed attention, the emotional temperature in the room changed. So you adapted. You became easy. You learned to self-soothe, to manage your own disappointment, to not expect too much. And it worked. It reduced conflict. It made you feel safer. People praised you for it. You're such a good kid, so mature, so understanding. And your nervous system encoded that as minimizing yourself equals safety and approval. Fast forward to adulthood, and that same pattern is still running. Except now it's not about survival anymore. Now it's about identity. You're not just someone who doesn't need much, you're proud of not needing much. It feels like strength, like emotional independence, like you're above all the neediness and drama you see in other people. But underneath that, pride is something else. A belief so deep you might not even recognize it as a belief. The belief that your needs are inherently too much, that wanting things makes you selfish, that the less you require from others, the more worthy of love you are. Here's where this gets complicated, because it's not like you never have needs. You're a human being. You have emotional needs, physical needs, relational needs, but instead of expressing them directly, you've developed this whole system of indirect management. You drop hints instead of asking. You wait to see if people notice instead of telling them. You test whether someone cares by seeing if they pick up on the things you're not saying. And when they don't, you feel hurt. But you don't say that either, because saying I'm hurt would be needy. So instead, you withdraw. You tell yourself you're fine. You rationalize why you didn't really need that thing anyway. You minimize your own disappointment in the exact same way you minimize your own desires. And over time, this creates a strange kind of loneliness, because even when people are close to you, they're not really close to you. They're close to the version of you that doesn't need anything, the version that's easy and accommodating and never a problem. But the part of you that actually feels things, that wants things, that gets hurt and disappointed and frustrated, that part stays hidden. Not because people rejected it, but because you never gave them the chance to see it. Let's talk about what this does to your relationships. When you never express needs, you think you're making things easier. And in a surface level way, you are. There's less conflict, less negotiation, less back and forth about what everyone wants. But here's what's actually happening. You're creating a dynamic where intimacy can only go so deep. Because intimacy isn't just about being present with someone. It's about being known. And you can't be truly known if you're constantly editing yourself down to the most palatable version. People can sense this, by the way. Even if they can't articulate it, they can feel that there's a part of you they're not allowed to access, and sometimes that makes them trust you less. Not because you're doing anything wrong, but because the relationship feels one-sided. They're bringing their mess, their needs, their complications, and you're bringing ease. Which sounds good in theory, but in practice, it creates an imbalance because they never get to take care of you. They never get to show up for you. They never get to prove that your needs won't be too much for them because you never give them that opportunity. And on your end, you start to resent them. Not consciously, but there's this low-level frustration that they don't see you, that they don't ask, that they take and never give back. Except they're not taking, you're giving, without being asked, without establishing boundaries, without ever communicating what you actually need. This shows up in your relationship with yourself, too. When you've spent years being low maintenance for other people, you start being low maintenance with yourself. You stop checking in with your own feelings. You dismiss your own discomfort. You override your body signals because you've trained yourself to function regardless of how you feel. You're tired, but you push through. You're hungry, but you wait. You're overwhelmed, but you don't rest. Because rest feels indulgent. Because needing a break feels weak. Your nervous system is constantly in this low-grade state of depletion. Not because you're doing too much, necessarily, but because you're not allowing yourself to receive. Not rest, not support, not care. You're always in output mode, always managing, always maintaining. And the scary part is, you might not even notice this is happening because you've gotten so good at functioning on empty that it feels normal. The burnout sneaks up slowly. The resentment builds quietly. The disconnection from your own needs happens so gradually that by the time you realize something's wrong, you don't even know what you're missing. So what becomes possible when you stop equating ease with value? First, you have to recognize that this is happening, that the pride you feel in being low maintenance might actually be a defense mechanism, that the ease you provide for others is coming at a cost to yourself. And this is hard to sit with because it means acknowledging that something you thought was a strength might actually be keeping you small. It means questioning an identity you've built your whole life around. It means facing the possibility that you've been abandoning yourself in the name of being loved. But here's what I want you to understand. Having needs doesn't make you difficult. Wanting things doesn't make you selfish. Asking for what you need doesn't make you a burden. The people who love you truly love you don't want the smallest, quietest, most convenient version of you. They want the real you, the version that has preferences and boundaries and desires, the version that sometimes needs support and care and attention. And if someone only likes you when you're low maintenance, that's not love, that's convenience. And you deserve more than to be convenient. Learning to express needs after years of suppressing them is uncomfortable. It feels vulnerable in a way that's almost unbearable at first. Because you're not just asking for something, you're testing whether you're allowed to want it in the first place. Your nervous system will resist this. It'll tell you you're being too much, that you should just handle it yourself. That asking will push people away. But most of the time, that's not what happens. Most of the time, people are relieved because it gives them permission to be more honest too. It creates space for a more authentic relationship. It allows them to actually show up for you instead of just benefiting from your constant accommodation. Start small. Notice when you're minimizing a preference. Notice when you're saying, "I don't care," when you actually do. Notice when you're managing someone else's potential reaction before they've even had a chance to react. And then, experiment. Say what you want for dinner. Express a boundary. Ask for help with something, not because you can't handle it yourself, but because you're practicing letting people see you. It's gonna feel awkward. You're gonna feel selfish. Your brain is gonna tell you this is too much. That's normal. That's your nervous system running its old program. It doesn't mean you're doing something wrong. It means you're doing something new. The hidden cost of being low maintenance isn't just what you give up in the moment. It's the cumulative weight of years of self-minimizing. It's the parts of yourself you've learned to silence. It's the relationships that stay surface level because you never let anyone see your full humanity. But it's also this. You've been carrying the invisible burden of managing everyone else's comfort while neglecting your own. And that's exhausting in a way that most people will never see or acknowledge, because the whole point was that they didn't have to. So if you're someone who's always been proud of being easy, of not needing much, of being the one people can count on, I see the weight of that. I see how hard you've worked to make things smooth for everyone else. I see the toll it's taken, even if you've hidden it well. And I want you to know, you don't have to keep performing ease to be worthy of love. You are allowed to need things. You're allowed to want things. You are allowed to take up space and ask for support and be a little complicated sometimes. That doesn't make you difficult. It makes you human. If this resonated with you, subscribe for more content on nervous system awareness, emotional patterns, and building a life that doesn't require you to constantly minimize yourself. And if you want to understand more about how early patterns around worthiness shape your relationship with resources and self-advocacy, I've got a video on the psychology of money beliefs that connects directly to this. Check it out next. You're not too much, you never were.